Nobody has any connection with these people. We don't know where to find them. We don't know how to call them. We don't know their names.
The rapid rise in representation by the ILC is sparking many district parents to question who these attorneys are and how they're managing to gain such traction. The ILC's website states a mission to defend the rights of the people to freely exercise their religion, as well as all the other First Amendment freedoms.
We really focus on state issues, which is helpful because there's a lot of issues that don't rise to national prominence, but there are people who need free legal advice and legal services and representation on those issues, and so we fill that vacuum.
During our investigation, we found the ILC is connected to several conservative and oftentimes Christian organizations. The Pennsylvania Family Institute, or PFI, created the Independence Law Center in 2006. Since 2014, tax records show the PFI received nearly $140,000 in funding from the Alliance Defending Freedom, the national Christian group behind the bill that would eventually overturn Roe v. Wade. Randall Wenger and Jeremy Samick, the ILC's chief counsel and senior counsel, have filed court briefs for the Alliance Defending Freedom, as well as another Christian conservative group, the Family Policy Alliance. The PFI is also linked to another Christian group, referring to the Family Research Council as a sister organization in a 2011 newsletter. But Samick, who also serves as chief of staff for the PFI, denies any association with the Family Research Council.
You know, we partner with lots of different organizations, and so but that doesn't make you a group who's like at the parent corporation of that organization.
Okay, but it does partner with it then. That would be true?
In the past, we have partnered with certain issues.
Researchers with the Southern Poverty Law Center, who study groups like the ILC, argue this is part of their strategy, denying these partnerships in order to fly under the radar.
I mean, for PFI, I think that legacy goes back several years.
R.G. Cravens, a senior researcher at the Southern Poverty Law Center, is talking about the ILC's history of working with hate groups as defined by the center. Craven says there's a growing trend in hate groups operating at the local and state level, especially when it comes to one particular issue.
We documented a network of groups that sort of trade in the demonization of LGBTQ people, especially false narratives and conspiracies about trans people.
Even though the Southern Poverty Law Center does not label the ILC as a hate group, many of the organizations it works with, namely the Pennsylvania Family Institute, Family Research Council, and Alliance Defending Freedom, are all designated by the center as LGBTQ+ hate groups. The ILC says the Southern Poverty Law Center is not a trusted source of information.
They're a political activist group. To the extreme.
While the ILC may reject these hate group designations, many parents use them as grounds for their opposition. But Samick argues the real hate comes from those identifying it.
When people use the anti-this label or the hate group label or the you don't care about kids label to these board members, they're attacking these children.
Far Christian right in the last couple of years, they've been around for a long time, right? But they've really gained a lot of traction recently. And there's a lot of that organizing that's happening in Pennsylvania.
It's happening in York County, where 12 of the 16 school boards there all flipped to conservative majorities in 2023. Many new board members were endorsed by a conservative political action committee, the PA Economic Growth PAC, which claims voters elected 48 of its 51 endorsed candidates in the 2023 race. Documents obtained by News 8 reveal correspondence between the PAC and those candidates, namely a secret meeting in a plain brown brick building they called the warehouse.
That sounds like you've got something to be afraid of. It sounds like you are trying to hide things from the public.
On March 15th, endorsed and elected board members were called to this space on East Market Street in York, instructed to use the rear entrance and look for a flag indicating the meeting location. Correspondence with the board members was organized by Veronica Gemma, the PAC's education director who faced criticism for suggesting diversity book bans during her previous term on the Central York School Board. The email invitation included fine print that stressed the need for confidentiality, with a warning to board members that photo and video during the meeting is prohibited. Screenshots also reveal Gemma texting a group chat with a reminder to only send 2 to 3 board members, with an explicit reference to the federal and state sunshine laws requiring transparency when 4 or more board members gather to discuss district business. Business that included discussion of the Independence Law Center.
This wasn't a random choice of law firms. This wasn't a, heard good things about this group and, maybe it'd be interesting. This was a predetermined plan.
In May of 2023, the PAC posted its list of endorsed candidates on its Facebook page, with a caption certifying all had signed an endorsement pledge. The pledge states endorsed candidates, if elected, must vote on several things, including the overturning of critical race theory, implementing policies relating to Title IX, and reviewing solicitor contracts to replace as needed. 40% of York County school boards have already acted on that last pledge, bringing in the ILC to replace or work with district solicitors. In order to receive endorsement from a PAC, there was an endorsement pledge. Are you guys aware of this?
Never heard of that. No.
The Pennsylvania Family Institute, which helps fund the ILC, received a $1,000 donation from the PAC's president in 2020. But Samick, despite being photographed at a PAC event with endorsed candidates, denies any prior knowledge of the secret warehouse meeting.
I first heard about all of that after the right to know request, and there was a newspaper article talking about that we were on an agenda.
News of that meeting has now reached the Education Law Center, whose attorneys say several dozen parents reached out to them requesting legal help regarding secret school board collaboration in the Susquehanna Valley.
What are the intentions of any particular organization that's trying to have influence in our school district if they are so intent on having secret meetings that are not open to the public, where records are not available under the Sunshine Act or Right to Know law? How good can that be for our school if it must be operating under darkness?
I recruited about 60 candidates, conservative Republican candidates, to overturn school boards.
Veronica Gemma, the education director for the Pennsylvania Economic Growth PAC, appearing on the Epic Times, explaining her strategy to create a stronghold in school boards across York County, where 12 of its 16 districts flipped to a conservative majority in 2023, including the Southwestern School District.
Our critique of the former school board was there wasn't enough parental consent and parental engagement in a lot of the policies they had.
Matthew Galizela, the president of the school board, says the board wants to increase the role of parents in education, a response he says is to mask mandates and other COVID-era policies enacted by the previous board.
I wish I could say exactly what first put them on the radar. I think it was shortly after we had a board discussion on what proper representation would be and how best to affect the policies we wanted to affect would be.
Galizela is referring to the board's decision to seek special counsel from the Independence Law Center, one of many districts to do so in recent years, including 3 districts this past summer: Elizabethtown, Upper Adams, and Penn Manor.
I think schools are reaching out to us largely because they've seen examples of other schools who've done similar things, and they're looking for somebody who can put into place a written policy that serves everybody.
But some parents argue policies created by the ILC do not serve everybody, rather the interest of school board members and the ILC.
It's not about parental choice unless you agree with them and go to their church and agree with all their same politics.
This argument is heightened by what parents call a lack of transparency, because the ILC often meets with school boards behind closed doors.
Our school board has told us that they are being advised by the Independence Law Center in executive session. So the ILC has never been to one of our school board meetings publicly.
While meeting with the ILC in executive session is legal, it doesn't require note-taking and is exempt from public record requests, leaving many parents questioning why they are not involved in the process.
They are not being completely transparent with their descriptions or explanations of what the ILC is telling them.
Many of the districts working with the ILC are creating policies that heighten restrictions for books deemed sexually inappropriate by board members, require schools to notify parents if a student requests a change in pronoun usage, and limits gender-affirming participation in school activities.
Boys and girls need to have their own spaces. They need to have their own sports, their own restrooms, their own locker rooms. We do not let the children run the buildings.
Those supporting these policies believe parents deserve a say in their child's education and argue school board members are transparent with their intentions, pointing to their campaigns.
If you want to be part of this process, if you want the right to complain, show up and vote.
But others argue it eliminates a safe space for some students, especially those in the LGBTQ+ community whose parents are unsupportive.
We've never had school board members working actively against our children before. They've been there working for our children. That's what they're supposed to be doing. And so we've never seen anyone go after a category or a group, and this is unprecedented.
That concern drove parents to contact the Education Law Center, a firm that actively works against policies created by groups such as the ILC.
Public schools are responsible for setting their policies based on the law, not any personal or religious belief.
Christina Moon, a senior attorney with the firm, says parents contacted her from at least 55 districts. That's nearly 1 in 10 public districts across the Commonwealth. The biggest concern? School boards are enacting policies in violation of Title IX protection for LGBTQ+ students. Moon says taxpayers face extensive liability in these situations.
School districts absolutely should be concerned about lawsuits in this context.
I think that the policies that we've helped schools pass are protective of them. I think it makes it less likely that they're going to be sued.
But Moon says the ILC's promise of free services to school districts only goes so far.
It's important to remember that it's not ILC who will be sued. It's the school district that adopts discriminatory policies that's on the hook.
Decades ago, one of the districts that's now working with the ILC encountered a costly lawsuit.
20 years ago, our district was sued by a group of parents when they tried to change the curriculum and teach intelligent design.
Gross is referring to the 2005 federal court case Kitzmiller v. Dover, a widely publicized lawsuit over a course teaching intelligent design as an alternative to evolution. At the time, Randall Wenger, the current chief counsel for the ILC, was working for the Foundation for Thought and Ethics, a Texas-based nonprofit that represented itself as a Christian think tank. The group's education materials were used by the Dover School District. During the case, Wenger filed a court brief on behalf of the foundation, arguing the curriculum was sound and should continue to be taught. The court ultimately ruled against the district, but not before a costly $2 million lawsuit, half of which fell on the shoulders of Dover taxpayers.
We don't need any more lawsuits. And if we are breaking and violating federal laws, then we could be facing more lawsuits, and we just can't afford it.
Some Dover residents are concerned that Wenger's work to further Christian ideology didn't end at the conclusion of the trial.
I don't think our school board understands that they're being used as pawns.
The ILC disagrees and argues the pawns at hand are students.
The saddest thing that I've seen is people using children as pawns to get their political point across.